Hi, welcome to our math. Today I'm doing a series of videos on rationals, specifically adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, reducing, domain, and solving. So this video is on solving. I have two problems. Each of my problems has three terms. 1, 2, 3. And what I want to do is clear my fraction. Whenever I have fractions in an equation, whether or not there's variables in the denominator or not, I always want to clear my fraction. So to do that, I need a greatest common denominator. Well, I want to factor this to be w times w minus 3 before I gauge what my greatest common denominator is. Sorry, least common denominator. W minus 3, my least common denominator, is w times w minus 3. I'm going to multiply this w times w minus 3 to each of my three terms. Now, I'm going to kind of do this in line. It's going to look a little bit weird, but it saves a little bit of space. I'm going to multiply a w times w minus 3 here, a w times w minus 3 here, and a w times w minus 3 here. The first one, the w minus 3's cancel, and I have a w times w plus 1. In the second term, the w's cancel, and I have a minus 3 times w minus 3. And then on the second side, everything cancels, and this is just equal to 12. So I have w squared plus w minus 3w plus 9 equals 12. Now, because of the w squared, that means I'm going to have to factor to solve, but because of the w squared, that means that I'm going to have to get it equal to 0 before I can do anything else. So if I combine my like terms and I subtract 12 over, I get w squared minus 2w minus 3 equals 0. Let's come up here really quickly. Part of the fact of the lowest common denominator being w times w minus 3 means we can figure out the domain. If w equals 0, we would have a 0 in the denominator, and that would be really bad. If w equals 3, we would have a 0 in the denominator, and that's undefined. That would be bad. It's not allowed. So I have to be aware of my domain when I do this. When I factor this, I get w minus 3 times w plus 1. And sure enough, my answer is this is 0 when w is 3, this is 0 when w is a negative 1, but because of this restriction right here, because a 3 would give me a 0 in the denominator, my only applicable answer is negative 1. Now, it's always good to double check these answers by putting them back into the original equation. I'm going to leave that to you. If you always check your answers, finding the domain is not as important. Okay. For my second example, my least common denominator is 6, because if I multiply by 6, it'll clear all three denominators. I'm going to do the same thing I did. I'm going to take a 6 times t plus 1, a 6 times t minus 1, and a 6 times 1. In my first fraction, 3 goes into 6 twice, and I'm left with 2 times t plus 1. In my second fraction, the 6's completely cancel, and I'm left with a 1 times t minus 1. Canceling means 1 because they divide out, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. Once again, 6 divided by 6 is 1, and I'm left with a plus 1. Now that I've cleared my fractions, it's a little bit of an easier problem. I will distribute to eliminate my fractions. 2t plus 2 equals t minus 1 plus 1. All right, minus 1 plus 1 is 0. I'll subtract the 2t over so that I have 2 is equal to negative t, and then divide by a negative 1. So t is equal to negative 2. That isn't, well, there is no restriction because there's no variables in the denominator, so we don't have to worry about domain. Negative 2, double check by substituting it back in. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my Facebook page, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks.